Thank you, Mrs. Chair. I would like first to apologize, since we are discussing technical issues that are sometimes very complex, and I may not be able to limit my intervention within the 3 minutes time frame that has been set for discussions. Anyway, ICOMOS took much more than 4 minutes. Now, we should first acknowledge the work done by ICOMOS to provide the committee with a full evaluation of the property in such a limited time. The task of advisory body gets more and more difficult when the time given for evaluation does not exceed a few months, and we should thank ICOMOS for their effort. Getting to the evaluation itself, we have to examine two separate issues. The first issue is whether the emergency character of the nomination is justified, and the second issue is whether the property justifies OUV. As for the first issue, ICOMOS considers that, quote, the threats facing the property do not constitute potential dangers to the cultural value of the property, end quote. This assessment is based on three sets of arguments. The first argument is that no final decision has been taken yet regarding the construction of the separation fence. This argument, in our view, is not convincing, since the decision has already been taken by concerned authorities in Israel, the detailed plans for the fence are ready, and the green light for the construction awaits only the final decision of the Israeli higher court. The threat is thus effective, and any delay in the decision of the committee may end up with a destruction of property characteristics. This is a typical case of emergency. The second argument developed by ICOMOS is that although the visual impact of the projected fence would be negative, it may be reversed by the removal of the structure at some point in the future. This argument looks really naive. It seems ICOMOS does not know what is a security fence. A security fence means that you have to create a security zone to control any possible infiltration, that you have to cut bushes and trees, get rid of any obstacle where suspects can hide. It means that you have to transform the area into a no man's land. This is a security fence. It's not a fence in an agricultural land in English countryside. This is a security fence, and you just have to look at the images of such fences, whether in Palestine or elsewhere, to understand that by no means the effect of such a structure would be reversible. The third argument developed by ICOMOS to deny the emergency character is even more surprising. ICOMOS says that any decision of the committee could not ensure the safeguarding of the property, since such a decision cannot influence the actions of a state party that is not associated with the nomination, meaning Israel, obviously. Article 6 of the Convention states clearly that the protection of world heritage is the duty of international community as a whole, and that each state party to the Convention undertakes not to take any deliberate measure which might damage directly or indirectly the heritage situated on the territory of other state parties to the Convention. This means clearly that if the committee considers that the property justifies OUV and inscribes it on the World Heritage List, then such a decision should directly affect the actions of any state party to the Convention. Denying this means that the Convention is useless and that the international community is not capable of protecting endangered heritage. The conclusion is clear. The three arguments developed by ICOMOS to deny the emergency character of the nomination are not valid. Moving to the second issue, that of OUV. ICOMOS considers that although the property is an example of a Mediterranean agricultural landscape and human interaction with the environment, characterized by terraces and complex irrigation systems, which may justify criteria 4 and 5, it does not have an outstanding universal value, since same type of landscapes can be found elsewhere, which have the same characteristics and the same time depth. It is clear that there is a lack of scientific studies regarding cultural landscapes in the Mediterranean area, which explains the difficulties faced by ICOMOS in assessing the OUV of such property. It would be useful here to recall previous decisions of the committee regarding properties having similar characteristics. The first case is that of the Mediterranean agro-pastoral cultural landscape of Causse and Cévennes, first presented by France in 2006. At that time, ICOMOS considered that the property does not justify OUV, developing the same type of arguments as for Batir. The dossier was deferred twice to the state party. Finally, in 2012, after 6 years, the committee decided to inscribe the property on the World Heritage List, despite an official declaration by ICOMOS that it was not in a position to recommend a statement of OUV for this property. The other case, which is similar to Batir, is the cultural landscape of the Serra de Tramuntana, presented by Spain in 2010. Here again, ICOMOS considered that, although the system of waterworks and terraces constitutes a peculiar feature of the property, such a system does not justify OUV since it could be found elsewhere. Hence, ICOMOS recommended not to inscribe the property on the World Heritage List. However, the committee decided not to follow ICOMOS' recommendation and inscribe the Serra de Tramuntana on the World Heritage List without deferring it or referring it to the state party. It seems that ICOMOS has taken this issue into consideration, since it has launched a few months ago a thematic study on water management in cultural landscapes and particularly in environments characterized by scarcity of water and specific agricultural techniques. But until the results of this thematic study are published, ICOMOS seems to maintain its position and refrains from recommending the inscription of cultural landscapes in the eastern and southern Mediterranean area on the World Heritage List. Mrs. Chair, we have to recognize that ICOMOS is consistent with its previous recommendations when it recommends not to inscribe Batir on the World Heritage List. Our view is that the committee should also be consistent with its previous decision and, as was the case in previous similar situations, should inscribe the property on the World Heritage List according to criteria 4 and 5, notwithstanding ICOMOS' recommendation. We cannot simply wait until ICOMOS finishes its thematic study. The World Monument Watch has inscribed Batir on the list of the 67 most endangered sites in 2014. If the property is not inscribed now, next year it may be too late. Any delay in the decision of the committee may end up with a destruction of property characteristics. Hence, we also recommend that the property be inscribed on the World Heritage List in danger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Turkey, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the representative of ICOMOS for a very eloquent and detailed presentation, despite the fact that I happen to disagree with the final observations and recommendations vis-à-vis the OUV nature, the emergency state, and the qualification of the nomination for inscription. Secondly, Madam Chair, I fully endorse and second the statement and the proposal of the delegation of Lebanon. The two statements I have heard made me believe even further clearly to what I am now going to state. Madam Chairman, distinguished delegates, UNESCO exists to bring creative intelligence to life, for it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace and the conditions for sustainable development must be built. Here, our first provision of the UNESCO Charter empowers us and puts us responsible to build the defenses of peace and not fences of security. And one nation, if there is one nation to testify about the devastating, destructive effect of building fences and walls is the people of Israel. Madam Chair, we would have very much wished to see that this nomination came as a transboundary multi-state nomination. The world has been waiting for too long for peace. The world has been waiting for too long that the state parties came forward not to exclude and downgrade the others' values and assets, but to move in the direction of safeguarding and collectively preserving, protecting, and promoting each other's values. That is why we are disappointed that until now this did not occur in the case of Palestine. Madam Chair, we recognize that every person has a right to engage with the cultural heritage of their choice while respecting the rights and freedoms of others. As an aspect of right freely to participate in cultural life, enshrined in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, and guaranteed by the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights of 1966. 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the Event of Conflict, and the 60th anniversary of the convention is celebrated on the 12th of June this very year, 2014. 2005, the Framework Convention on Value of Cultural Heritage for Society, the Faro Convention, Article 7 states, cultural heritage and dialogue develop knowledge of cultural heritage as a resource to facilitate peaceful coexistence by promoting trust and mutual understanding with a view to resolution and prevention of conflict. Madam Chair, these are the mandatory principles that we have undersigned as state parties, as nations, to build and maintain peace in this world. Given these and the description, the detailed description outlined by the delegate of Lebanon, Turkey believes that the Palestine Land of Olives and Wines nomination, the cultural landscape of southern Jerusalem, Batir, enjoys OUV, and it carries emergency nature, and it has all the qualifications for inscription. And I have not only the hope, but I want to be confident that this committee endorses the same position by consensus. Thank you, Madam Chair.